Veterans Day and thank all those veterans for their service, and in particular the spouses and those people who support those veterans.
Absolutely. Yep. Veterans Day. You can always tell on Facebook because everybody changes their profile pictures to when they were on active duty.
Yeah.
You can
Well,
always tell who the veterans are.
there's a lot of history behind Veterans Day, and we get around to that. We'll talk a little bit about it and stuff, So,
And we can talk a little bit now. We can talk about our military, our time, our history.
yeah, a lot of people can confuse Veterans Day with Memorial Day, but there's a huge difference in between those two holidays, or they really aren't holidays, but they are holidays now. Uh,
Yeah, they're one's for the living
but
and one's for the dead.
yeah, Veterans Day is originally known as Armistice Day, and it was started back in 1918 by, I guess, Woodrow Wilson and on November 11th, actually, 1919. Do you know, actually, Veterans Day actually changed a couple of different times? The first approved, it was for November the 11th every year, okay? Then in the 40s or the 50s, I can't remember exactly what day it was now. Some people got the idea they wanted to have, because they wanted holidays tied into all the holidays for veterans and everybody to have the same. So they went to a certain Monday. Well, that didn't last very long. I guess a lot of people weren't happy with that. And then this guy, Raymond Weeks from Birmingham, Alabama, had the idea, instead of having the Armistice Day, to celebrate all veterans. And he worked hard on that. And in 54, Eisenhower signed the bill of law uh, making the first Armistice Day celebration for all veterans. Uh, then Congress amended the bill in 54, replacing armistice with veterans. So a lot of history about it when you go back to it. But in in October 1971, they wanted Veterans Day to be on a Monday, but that didn't last very long. They back in '78 they moved it back to the November 11th date, to celebrate it, Veterans Day. And, you know, so here's some unknown facts about Veterans Day. What's the correct spelling of veterans?
Veterans.
Right, Veterans, but some people use with the apostrophe. Uh, it was originally called Armistice Day in celebration of the Allied victory in World War One. Then 54 changed to honor all veterans. Uh, there's a parade. The New York City Veterans Day Parade is the oldest in the country, taking place along Fifth Avenue. I did not know that,
I didn't either.
but it doesn't surprise me. A lot of history when you go back into that part of the country. Here's another one that people get upset: the poppy. The red poppy is a symbol of remembrance of soldiers who lost their lives in World War One,
Hmm.
not to be confused to celebrate it on Veterans Day. The blue and red
Yeah, they
Veterans
usually give the
Awareness
poppy out on
Ribbon.
Memorial Day, don't they?
Do I?
The poppy is usually given out on Memorial Day, isn't it?
Yes, on Memorial Day. Yes, it came about with Flanders Field in 1918, and that. So that was just a few things on Veterans Day. Uh, how many countries honor Veterans Day on November 11th?
Um, us in Canada.
Canada, Australia observe Remembrance Day on November 11th. Great Britain on the Sunday nearest to November 11th. Similarities, the difference between these countries' Remembrance Day and American Veterans Day. Canada's observance is actually quite similar to the U.S. celebration in that the day is intended to honor all who served in Canada's armed forces. However, unlike the U.S., many Canadians wear red poppy flowers on November 11th in honor of their war dead. Australia, Remembrance Day is much like America's Memorial Day, a day to honor that nation's. In Great Britain, the day is commemorated by the church services and parades of ex-service members in Whitehall, a wide ceremonial avenue leading from London's Parliament Square to Trafalgar. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes, Trafalgar Square.
Wreaths of poppies are left in this cenotaph, a war memorial in Whitehall, which was built after the First World War. At the cenotaph, and thus for the country, 2 minute silence observed at 11 a.m. to honor those who lost their lives. So a lot of countries still observe Veterans Day just like we do, a similar things to Veterans Day like we do. And I think that's really important. And that, to me, that just talks about how close, really, in some respects, all these countries are. Yeah, and you know what I'm talking about when I say these countries, I'm talking about Europe and the free countries, how we feel about things, especially when it comes to these kind of issues of supporting the veterans. But it's the veterans who give their all. And I want to thank you for your service.
And thank you for yours.
Yeah, and Uncle Bobby, and Uncle Leonard, and
Uncle Ray,
Uncle Ray,
Uncle Gene,
Uncle Gene,
your dad,
yeah, and father-in-law, and your father-in-law, Brenda's dad.
and and mom's dad.
Yep, got a lot of history there, huh?
Yeah, a lot of history. I think our family, aside from World War One, has fought in every major war. Maybe 1812 and World War One. But I
Yep,
know on our side we have Revolutionary War, Civil War, World War Two, Vietnam, OIF, OEF. For me, not nobody in Desert Storm. I don't think.
yeah. And this morning I got a really nice text message for a good friend of mine called Tony Lamarca. I don't know if you remember him or not.
I
Uh,
remember him.
we were stationed, Tony and Maynard, a whole bunch of guys there at Maxwell when you were just a little bitty fart, climbed up in that big old tree. Well, not a big tree, but that tree in the backyard and couldn't get your butt down. So your mom had to call me to come get you down. But anyway, then we were stationed with him in Japan, Maynard, and and it's funny how life is. Today, I'm going to be going with our DAV Chapter 114 to the Golden Corral, who's a big sponsor of veterans. And all the donations that we receive today, half of it will go to us, to the local chapter at that particular Golden Corral. Then the other half will go to DAV National Headquarters to support veterans. And like Tunnel for Towers, 96%, 95% of every dollar that's donated to the DAV goes back to help veterans. Uh, but anyway, Tony sent me a nice little thing this morning to, for thanking me for service, and brought back a lot of memories and back in Japan. And when he was coaching the basketball team that we had, the Golden Knights. I don't know if you remember that or not.
I remember.
Yeah, so those are nice things to bring back good memories and fun times, right?
Very fun times.
So, what do you think about this Alabama football game?
Oh wow. Where do I begin? I think this was like the first complete game we've played all season, and especially on the road, with the weather being what it was. Uh, Jalen Milrow put on a masterful display of not turning the ball over and taking advantage of what the defense gives you. Not and I think the other side of that coin is what you saw with Nussmeyer. The further they got behind, the more he tried to make things happen and then you see the mistakes happen. Watching LSU was like watching us when we had our losses in at Tennessee and at Vandy, trying to force things to happen instead of just being patient. Let the take what the defense gives you, and 3 and out is your friend.
Yeah, and I blame that on the coaches. I think I told you when I watched the A&M game with LSU how Brian Kelly reacts on the sideline and stuff, and I saw that again uh, in this game. And then he puts all that pressure, and I understand what a coach's job is, but a coach's job also is to help you maintain your cool and your control and help you get out of those situations and stuff. Uh,
And you touched on something important here, and a lot of people lose sight of this. This is a team he inherited. We lost what 26 players, and when he got there, they made a point to mention that last night, at least, or not last night, Saturday night. Herb Street did at least. When Kalen DeBoer got there, the portal was closed, so he was stuck with what was in the cupboard, and he's trying to do the best he can with what he has, as well as the players having to adjust to a different coach, different style.
I totally agree. And and the other thing we talked about is the defensive coach. How he has changed from what he wants to do to what he has with his players, what they need and what they want to do. And I saw that on the offensive side too. I've said this a couple of times. I like our quarterback, but you got to
I do
let
too.
him be him. And
Yes,
when and I think the first part of the season we tried to transition that offense into what the offensive coordinators wanted to do rather than what we actually had there. And I think Saturday night we saw them changing. Let's play the skills that we have, and when they call those options, I think Jalen Milrow is a pretty good quarterback. I think he reads pretty good and stuff like that,
he does.
but he's also a good runner.
The
You know,
fastest
and
on the team. My
and
only
what
complaint with him, I'm sorry to cut you off. My only complaint with him is he is so strong on the deep route. He does not have that timing rhythm down with his
right.
receivers. He's always overshooting them by this much or, that much.
And to that respect, I think that's because we got a lot of new receivers. Because we lost a couple of receivers. Corey Brooks left, and I forgot who the other one was
Isaiah Bond.
that left. And so you don't have that timing with the new guys. But I like this kid Ryan Williams. I think he's going to be a playmaker for us. I'm going to make a prediction right now. If he doesn't get hurt, he could be the Heisman winner in his junior year or senior year. At the way
Oh, he
he's
won't be
playing now.
won't be here his senior year. He'll be gone his junior year.
Yeah. So, but it was the most complete game I've seen them play and stuff like
Our
that.
defense was really good. They put pressure on the quarterback. It was almost reminiscent of a Kirby Smart defense. They dialed
Yep.
up the pressure.
Yep. And what do you think about Georgia losing? That was a huge surprise.
Uh, Georgia again looked like us.
Yeah.
They
They.
did not show up for that game. And you know what? A lot of people were calling the upset before the game, like days before they said Ole Miss was going to upset them.
And when you look at Miami and Georgia Tech, that's another game.
Well, everybody also said Miami's been playing with the house money for a long time. They've
Yeah.
been playing above, their heads, and finally came back down. And guess who beat them? Georgia Tech, the same team that knocked off Florida State in the opener this season.
Yep. And I tell you what, I believe we're still, even though these are young men, 19, 20, 21, and that, but up here mentality wise, sometimes they start drinking the Kool Aid and they start believing and the hype and stuff like that, and it kind of gets away from the team aspect of it, and it next thing you know, the other team is playing harder because they're trying to play catch up, and they believe they can win, and but they're the underdogs, so we try harder. The next thing you know, you get a little momentum going in your direction, and it can change the momentum of the game. And it goes back to what we are talking about. I think just a little bit before we started the podcast, the NIL and the transfer portal.
Yep. Can you believe Florida State has lost 9 games this season?
Yep, I can believe it.
I mean, I'm looking. Hang on, they are 1-9, Dad. What a drop off from last year. From since last year, where they were saying that they were robbed. Total different discussion for another day. They were robbed, and they had how many players opt out of the bowl game? Vice Georgia, who also got robbed, in my opinion. They had the same amount of players that could have opted out but did not opt out, and they just skull drug Florida State 63-3. A lot of Florida State fans refuse to believe that. They're like, well, we had players opt out. Well, Georgia didn't, and they were in the same boat as you. The
Yeah,
only difference between the two is Georgia didn't win the SEC championship, whereas Florida State won the ACC championship. That's
and
the only lick of difference between them.
and I think that has to do with the transfer portal. I, I, I like the transfer portal. I think it's a good thing. I think there need to be probably a little more
Tweaks.
restrictive in as when you can and all those kind of things, and how many times you can transfer.
Yes.
You know, uh, but we're talking about my shirt, UTSA.
Yeah.
Uh, Go ahead.
No, yeah, you were talking about your shirt, UTSA,
Yeah, and
and the transfer portal.
last year they were really at the top of the game, but we had a couple of transferred out. The quarterback retired. He's not even playing because of injuries and stuff like that in the NFL. Which I think we actually had one or two that went to the NFL. And
Yeah,
then we
they did.
had some, but I agree with you. I think they're going to come back up. Texas State's doing good. They won this weekend. Incarnate Word, and I think these schools are starting to pick up players from Texas and all these other big schools around that the players aren't willing to wait on the bench for their time, which could be sometimes 2 or 3 years before they actually get a chance.
You're right. And the one thing that is enticing these young men to come to these other schools is the NIL money. And I hate to say it because you and I also have the same line of thought about everything being an arms race. But it is. And if you don't have the facilities, the coaching, and the NIL money, these players just are not going to go there. They're going to go somewhere else. And it's to the
Absolutely.
point where they really don't care about winning championships or games, is because some of them, for them, it's just about the payout.
Yeah, I think, and I really understand that they're looking at their future. Uh, a lot of these kids are coming from middle class families or lower, or some of them don't have a whole lot of opportunities where they come from, or the money, or things like that. So this is an opportunity for them in their life to. It's like business. You're doing a business to grow and to advance, to make money, and then you can do the things that you personally want to do. Or when you get in the military and you decide you want to stay, you want to grow in that military, you want to make the ranks, you want to get those positions where you have some control and you can direct things and change things. So it's to me that's what sports is becoming. It's becoming a business.
It is, but one of the things that you and I saw early on with Saban, was he was more concerned about turning these young men into men and
Exactly.
looking long range at their future. And while he was there, he consistently had the highest graduation rates of any of the schools. They were graduating more football players. And if you're not taking notice, look at the jerseys on their left hand side. If they haven't graduated, it'll say SEC. But if they have graduated, it'll say SEC, and underneath it, under like a rocker, it'll say graduate.
Yeah.
And Jalen Milrow, he's a graduate. A lot of these players, they've already graduated college. Some of them, Jalen Milrow's working on his master's right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm not taking anything away from the current coaches, but I see a huge difference in the current level of coaches now in regards to that aspect that most of them are to the point, and this is where I blame the probably the alumni, the presidents, and all those people who do all the hiring and firing. There's such a emphasis on winning that we forget about the other intangible things. That's a huge part of winning, which is people, how you take care of, how you develop those people, and how you prepare them for life. Because in 3 years or 4 years, you're going to be gone. And less than that, if you get injured, so then what are you going to fall back on? And what's the percentage of these players making it to the big league? 5%?
Not a lot. Not a lot. There's what,
Yeah.
2,000 plus colleges, but only 32 NFL teams.
Yeah. And the good coaches, the ones that you hear about today, I like the coach at Indiana, Signetti. But
Yep.
where did he come from? His background is back from those coaches like Saban and those guys who teaches those values in those young men, that you need your education as well as the opportunity to grow in life to do what you want to do. I think somewhere along the line we're probably losing some of those, or at least it appears that way.
I think a lot of it's still there. I honestly do, because so many of the metaphors and analogies that these football coaches, or any sports coach, so much of it is akin to war as much as it is akin to, like you said, business philosophy and business tactics on how you live your life.
Yeah.
You got to have that kind of mentality of, I'm here to win. That's number one. Two, are you going to do those things that it takes to win? And three, are you going to, after you made your mistake, learn from it and move on and not continue to dwell? And it's the same thing in business. If you make a mistake, you own it. You apologize one time to your boss. You don't continue to apologize, because the more you do, the more you keep it fresh in their mind that you screwed up. Own it, and then move on, and don't make the same mistake again. And they will eventually forget.
He's totally agree. You got to understand what you did wrong. You got to fix it. Then once you fix it, you move on. You don't talk about it anymore, because then all you do is bring back all those behaviors that caused
And
the problem to
memories,
begin with, and you repeat them.
and you keep it fresh in your boss's mind.
So, yeah,
You want your boss to trust you. So, and likewise, you want to be able to trust your boss. I mean, it's a
yeah.
symbiotic thing. When you have that relationship going on, everything is success.
So, what are you going to do for the rest of the day for your Veterans Day to celebrate and do anything special?
Uh, the wife has told me she's getting tired of the long hippie hair, so I got to get it trimmed up a little bit. So this afternoon, I'm going to get my hair cut just a little bit, thin it out, get some of the bulk taken out. But I'm not going to have it much longer than I have it now. I just want it
Yeah,
just a little bit above the ear, just kind of, tapered back, just a little bit, just try something different for a while.
yeah,
Finish up the beard this month for No Shave November. I think it's coming in pretty good for
yeah,
12 days. Is it? What day is
yeah.
it? The 12th? Yep, the 12th. No, the 11th. So 11 days I've had this thing growing. I think it's coming in pretty good. And I'm
Well,
going to work on my paper that's due next week for my data analytics class. I finished up my midterm on Friday, and I got most of my paper done. I'm just kind of polishing up that turd, making it look right, getting formatting and filling in some gaps. That's what I'm doing. What are you doing?
So what was that concert you went to this past weekend?
Well, if you can't see or recognize the logo, it was the Black Crows, and man, I've been dying to see them since 1990 when their first album came out. I just love the band, and they did not disappoint. And they had an opening act. Oh my God, called Big Sugar. Never heard of them. Within a minute and a half of them playing that first song, they had the whole audience right there in the palm of their hand. They're that good. They're the singer's originally from Canada. He said in the show that he just lives up the road off of Highway 281, but they're big in Canada. Did not know that, but man, they put on a show. Just three of them.
Oh, wow,
Very
okay.
tight, very tight. He plays a double neck guitar. He can play. He can sing. They just you got to check them out. They kind of got that bluesy rock thing going. They throw in a little bit of a reggae influence on some of the songs. They're just they're the real deal. And
Yeah.
again, the Black Crows, they've still got it. They just put out a record. I think it's called Happiness. It's just as good as when they first started.
Well, tell me, how does the, a group like that, obviously they're not a big name group. So how does somebody like the Black Crow get them to have the open act? How does that process work?
That's a mystery. Sometimes it's I got a sense from the opening act when they were talking to the audience. Well, no, not a sense. The when the Black Crows first started out, they saw that band Big Sugar play somewhere, and they got met up and talked, and the Black Crows said how much they liked their sound and their style, and they were asked to open up this tour by the Black Crows because they like what they do and how they sound. Sometimes it's that. Sometimes the opening act is on the same record label, and usually the band doesn't have much choice in who gets to open up for them in that regard. Sometimes it's family. Uh, two Iron Maiden tours ago, when I saw them, the bass player, the founder of the band, his son had a band, and they were opening up for
Oh,
Iron
okay.
Maiden. Uh, when I saw the former singer of uh, Queensryche, Jeff Tate, his daughter opened up for him when he played here in San Antonio on tour. So sometimes it's that. Sometimes it's just these bands are able to go on tour when you want to go on tour, and you know them on a personal level, and you're like, hey, let's go on tour together, and out they go. Because there's a lot of bands that like to tour together because they're friends. Back in the
So
90s, Pantera and Anthrax used to tour together a lot. They were very close friends.
so this band opened, they're on tour with them. So wherever the Black Crow goes, they're going to be going with them to open.
Yeah. So, and here's the other thing. I overheard this when I was at the King Diamond concert. Overkill was opening up. They were the main headline, the main opening act, and because they're an opening act, they don't get to play their full set, obviously. So on certain nights when the King Diamond isn't playing, the other bands, they can go out and play shows wherever they're at or just down the road if they want because they're off. And I heard when I was in the merch line, the lady at the overkill table was talking to somebody, and she said, "Yeah, when we get to so and so, we're going to be off, but Overkill will be playing a show that night."
Okay.
So that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And sometimes you get an older band that they've got a lot of hits. They're not quite as relevant today as they once were, so they sometimes will bring in younger bands to open up to draw in new blood, if you will.
Right. That
So
makes
they can,
sense.
that's how they can increase their audience. They got the normal diehards that are going to be there, but as you get older, the herd starts to thin, and
Yeah.
then so they want to bring in new blood, and then they bring in younger bands that are far more current,
Okay.
just to increase the audience size, and that's smart too.
So what you got on the agenda for the next week or so, band wise?
Next weekend is Iron Maiden with an opening act called The Who, that Mongolian metal band that I just fell in love with. So yeah, so next Sunday, Iron Maiden. Then it'll be a short week for me because I'll be off that Monday because of the concert late night, and then you and I are taking off that following Friday, and we will be in Oklahoma City for the Alabama Oklahoma game.
Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to that trip.
So last week was a short 4 day week. This week's a short 4 day week. The next week after that for me is a shorter 3 day work week. And then the week of Thanksgiving, I'm only working that Monday, and I got the rest of the week off. And you and I are going to go get some Thanksgiving pies.
Yeah. Well,
So that week, I will follow it up with Wasp and Armored Saint on the 30th. The band Wasp will be playing their first album in its entirety. So that is that. Oh, and Thursday, the before the Black Crowes, Brent and I went to New Braunfels for Wurst Fest. Got our wurst and beer on.
well, I'll give a shout out to you, Aunt Carolyn. We're getting close to that time. She called me during the football game just to say she was visiting with her husband Phil, is brother to one of my best friends, Daniel King. So they called me just to say hello and roll tide during the game Saturday night. Didn't want to talk too much because they were like me. They were all tied up in that game, watching every little thing and keeping your fingers crossed. And hopefully, the first half was going to be what you see in the second half, right?
Yeah, 60 minutes, not 30.
So, yeah. Then later on today, we'll go to Golden Corral to support DAV. And one of the things that we do here in this chapter, like tonight from 4 to 8, or 4 to 9, all veterans eat free. Okay, so uh, we'll be accepting donations, but the biggest thing that we're going to do is go around and personally thank each veteran and their spouse or their family member for their support. And I thought that was pretty neat because we haven't done that in the past with the other chapter. We just basically came in, we talk to people when they make donations, stuff like that. But when I was talking to Jose, and by the way, I was stationed with him in Japan, and we both worked customs immigration. He worked for good friend Connie Wilson, David's father, and those things who we were close personal friends with. So looking forward to that. So I'm gonna go over there about 1 this afternoon, and but I thought that was pretty neat when I talked to Jose that we'll actually be in the dining room talking to, not interrupting their meals, but talking to the veterans and thanking them and the families for their support. So I thought that was pretty neat that we do that.
Yep, that's pretty cool.
Huh?
I said that's pretty cool.
Yep. So anyway, we're getting close to that time. I guess we better move
Yep.
on to next weekend and do whatever. And I want to say thank you and big shout out to all of our veterans and who served, and especially to the family members who support them. Because you know what, those mothers and wives and sons and daughters, they serve right along with those veterans.
They do. All righty.
All
I will catch up with you here next weekend.
right, you have a good one, and again, big shout out to all of our veterans and friends and family who served.
All right. Thank you. And thank you all for your service. Thank you for listening. All right, y'all take care.
All right, guys. Love you guys, and y'all have a great Veterans Day.
Thanks. Love you too, Dad.
I love you, man.